He's done it all. Hundreds of skydives, traveled the world, army, police work, intelligence work, and prison. Now he's an author and a biker with an axe to grind. He's Dennis M. Young. Today is December 29th, 2016. I'm Dennis Young. Have a huge kind of show today. We're putting out some information that is not in the mainstream. It's not even on the alt media, really. I ran across it. I'll explain everything as we go. But first, my Aunt Martha is sick, and I'm just wishing her get well wishes from me. So this show is dedicated to her getting better. So anyway, we'll go on. So there is strong evidence that the CIA wants to kill Donald Trump, and that's what we're going to get into here. And we can all follow the bouncing ball together, and you can decide if it's a good case or not. So much of the evidence comes from, I ran across this website called whatdoesitmean.com, and I noticed that their detractors call them, an division of the SVR, which is Russian Foreign Intelligence Service. That could be a good thing. I don't care if it's disinformation, misinformation. That's what we have to weigh. That's what analysis is all about. Just like people have analyzed CNN, MSNBC by themselves, found it as garbage, and dumped them. And we can do the same with these guys. So I looked into their history a little bit. They have pretty provocative stories, and they seem solid to me. I'd give them a fair shot anyway. We'll see how they do over the long haul, and the long haul is only a month away. So we'll see what happens from this story. It'll be interesting. In intelligence, you can get bad and good information from the same person. So what we wouldn't do is accuse somebody of being, fake news or a fake agent or whatever. You would take each piece of information and weigh it as a professional and say, well, he's good on this, he was bad on that, might have had ulterior motives here, whatever. It goes by the information. You don't really allow someone, even somebody that has been right 100% of the time for 10 years, the next time they come in, you still weigh their information and keep your radar with bullshit on. You never accept something just because someone says it. And even if you trust them, it's all about that piece of information that you're dealing with that sits right in front of you. So what we often did is just say, well, you weigh everything and you say, well, there's a 65% chance this will happen, 25% chance that'll happen, 10% chance this will happen. You kind of guess and you alter that constantly as you go. Now, this is also with blowback. So when you say, we're going to commit it, this is important for later on, but we're going to commit an offensive action. 65% chance the blowback will be X. 10% chance it'll be Y. 5% chance it'll be Z. And this is coming into where we're going to talk about with Trump and his actions as we roll this out. You want to control and even direct blowback whenever possible. The plot is getting a little thicker now, so as we get into the meat of this. On the 26th of October, 2016, whatdoesitmean.com filed a report about the terror attacks in France. It details that the Lebanese intelligence caught wind of 4 Saudis. I guess these Saudis were on a plane crossing into Lebanese airspace. They scrambled Lebanese fighter jets to bring this plane down. They forced it to land, and one of these Saudis had a laptop. So they took the laptop, and it was encrypted far beyond what they'd ever seen before. So they tried to encrypt it, couldn't. So they called the Russian SVR, the Foreign Intelligence Service. It's like their CIA. They took the laptop, not to the embassy in Lebanon, they took it to Moscow. And after a certain amount of time, they decrypted it. And what they learned was that this guy had gotten documents sent to him from the CIA. Now, these documents were, one of the big ones was Trump's travel itinerary. So these guys were planning to murder Trump with CIA assistance. Now, I wrote about it at a Henchman's Honor blog lots that Hillary and Soros, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, they're all the same thing. And I wrote about them in the context of Aleppo, Syria. But they're still the same gang, different place. So now their intention is to murder Trump. And Trump knows this. Trump knows that the system is the Saudi gives the funds, the Clintons direct the action, and the CIA conducts the operation, maybe through third parties like these, even Saudi or jihadis or whoever in the Arab world. In the end, it amounts to a simple thing. They want Trump dead. The Saudis are on the file, and Trump knows this, and he won't even be briefed by the CIA. He won't sit down and think, because they know. For one, he knows that they're going to sit there and bullshit him. And number two, why do you sit across the table from a guy who's planning to kill you? No, you don't want anything to do with him. You want to plan his demise before he can get you. And I wrote about this, a piece called Trump versus Soros, Who's Going to Shoot First? Now the plot gets even thicker. 6 weeks later, on December 12, 2016, former Congressman Jack Kingston and American oil industry consultant Carter Page, he's a former Marine intelligence officer, worked a lot in Africa. Those two guys both flew to Moscow. They're both senior advisors to Donald Trump. It's very important. The two men met with Sputnik News and signed contracts with RSB Group. That's a Russian private military contractor, and we'll get into who they are right here. Trump already has 11 PMCs, basically civilian mercenaries who were something big, special forces. They come out of special forces. Anyway, Russia has its own version called RSB. So I'm using a lot of acronyms here, but a PMC is a private military contractor. And Trump has 11 of them protecting him already. So why a 12th and why Russian? The plan is to merge the Russians into domestic PMC operations. And we're going to get into the why here. Where do these Russian PMCs come from is the first question. So right after Kingston and Carter signed the contracts, hundreds of GRU, that's the Russian Special Forces units, and military intelligence, well, they fell off the Russian Ministry of Defense payroll. They basically disappeared from the army. So these guys are very thorough. They're the best pound for pound. People say that the Israelis are the best intelligence gatherers pound for pound. Wrong. The Russians are. I even saw, I was in Bosnia walking around with my translator, went to deliver a message to this local bureaucrat, and out of his office walks this Russian. He's like more than 300 pounds, wearing full Russian identifiers, beret, everything. Walks out, walked past me, looked at me and said, "Privyet." And I said, "How you doing?" And he just kept going. This is a guy who could have played front line in the NFL somewhere on the offensive line. He was huge. And anyway, there were supposedly no Russians in Bosnia at the time, but this guy wasn't too ashamed to walk around wearing his uniform, getting stuff done. I don't know what it was, but anyway. These are some of the toughest, most dedicated men on the planet. And man, do they have skills. So this contract that was arranged between Trump's guys and Moscow, it arranged for Monarch Air Group, which is aircraft company, private aircraft company out of Florida. And they hired them to fly 7 business class jets to Moscow and return to Washington and New York City on the 20th of January 2017. That's Trump's inaugural day. So that's basically kickoff for these guys. Well, why isn't this news? Why don't you see it in the media? I mean, they have more, their radar's on a lot bigger than mine. So the right doesn't want Trump to look like he's in bed with the Russians because that's how the left has been trying to paint him. So this does no service for the right, putting this in. Even the alt media, the big respectable like Breitbart, Infowars, I notice they haven't been covering this, and they don't want to lend the left the ability to say, oh, look, he is a Russian after all. And the left isn't putting it in the media because they're part of the program. They are, to these guys, they're the enemy. As far as I'm concerned, we've had Russia as our ally before, and why not get their help when a gang of psychopaths want to kill the president? The left doesn't report this because they're the cabal that's in the crosshairs. So the whole structure, like the Fed, George Soros, Clinton, CNN, MSNBC, CIA, the Department of Justice, all the heads of these organizations are in these guys' crosshairs because Trump is in their crosshairs. So, we're going to go into blowback. They're all complicit in this, and they know the hammer is about to drop. They just don't know who and how hard. So they are desperate to kill Trump before they have to face that blowback, which they don't really understand. Soros has until the 20th of January 2017 to kill Trump, or Trump will seize the initiative. Once that happens, the whole rotten structure is going to come down. Trump knows that he's not playing with kids here. He knows that it's this same cabal, or their fathers, uncles, this lineage that orchestrated World War II, 9/11, and killed Kennedy, and dozens of other politicians around the world. They've all suffered under these people. Even Hillary's friends, like Vince Foster and kids who ran across drug dealing in Mena, Arkansas, they're all dead. There's dozens of them, more than 50. So Trump really knows what he's up against. This is why Obama continues to push through legislation that he knows Trump can nullify with a stroke of the pen. Because Obama believes that Trump will be too dead to strike his pen. Obama is the ultimate coward. He's going to sit there, take money from people, smile, meet Trump, knowing that there's a plot to murder him. And he doesn't even care. He's not mad enough to say this is wrong. So what specifically will these Russian military contractors do? Because bodyguarding is a lot more than forming a circle around your guy when the gunshots start or getting him out of there. That's reactive. We want a successful PMC will go on the offensive. They'll be proactive about their guy. They'll look for information. They'll look for threats. They'll be where they're basically an intelligence service. A special ops unit doesn't even understand the word defense. These guys don't drop in somewhere, dig a trench, and sit there and wait for the enemy to come. That's not at all. But some of the guys, they probably never dug a trench in their entire GRU experience. Maybe back in the Army they did, but not in GRU. As Patton said, wade into the enemy, spill their blood, stick them in the guts. And that's how these guys think. So when Trump says, I want your protection, they're thinking, where do I go? Not, where do I stand? On January 20th, Trump and men like these are going to go and see the Fed, Soros, head of the CIA, and Trump's going to say something, we're guessing here, but something like, this is Dmitry, Pavel, and Sergei. The only thing stopping them from blowing your heads off is me. If anything happens to me, nothing's stopping them. So the message has got to be clear that there will be a chain of them and their friends dying if something happens to Trump. So he's laying out the blowback. He's making it very clear. Now, this can only be done by men without social security numbers and American passports. You see, the avenue of blowback is guys can trace your guys, then they're going to start eating away at them, getting rid of them, and then you're going to be left with nothing. So you need someone who can do what's got to be done and leave. And let's keep in mind that these people can't even find Ed Snowden in Russia or don't have the balls to go get him. So it seems that most wanted men on the planet are safe in Russia. Well, these former GRU guys, they can commit actions for Trump and go back to Russia with the blessing of Putin, because Putin's in on this too, and live a happy life. And these guys can't get at them. So these guys see that also, that the blowback or the force is directed at them, the guys like Soros, and they can't do a counter. And that's painful. The obvious good news is that a U.S.-Russian close relationship is far better than a war. There's nothing wrong with countries being close and even being involved with each other's security. Look at the EU and America are so entangled, but the EU is just, they've been subjugated by it. But Trump is not going to be subjugated by Putin, and Putin is not going to be subjugated by Trump or anyone else. He's proven that he's taken Russia out of the ashes, fought these same bankers that are after Trump, and clawed his way to a successful country. Even greater than this is that this election result can finally take on its true meaning that I have not really heard much about, but it is the unfettered flow of truth like the world has never seen. That, to me, is what this election was about. Getting rid of all these guys who can suppress the truth. The fact that 9/11 was committed by the U.S. government is nothing compared to the information that will follow. It's just your 20th century history will have to be completely rewritten, because all the garbage that's in there now and all the misinformation that's involved, it's all going to be rewritten, and this is an exciting time. So prepare to be shocked. In closing, Trump and Putin should stop being viewed as men. Russia and America should stop being viewed as nations. They are ideas. Now two great ideas are allies. I'm Dennis Young for Henchman's Honor.